Hello and good evening. I'd like to welcome you to tonight's special program, Lunar New Year Symbols and Traditions with Chef Don Lee. It's my pleasure to welcome you on behalf of the board of the Friends of the Chinese American Museum, and I also would like to thank staff for all their hard work in producing this series in celebration of Chinese New Year and Lunar New Year. Some of the things you need to know before we start. First of all, this program is being recorded, and so it'll be made available for public viewing in the future. Tonight, if you have questions to ask of our presenter, please send your questions to the chat box to the Chinese American Museum, and we'll address as many as we can at the end of the program for our Q&A session. So now I'd like to introduce my friend, Chef Don Lee. I had the pleasure of meeting him quite a few years ago when I was attending several of the national Hakka conferences in New York. And those conferences were presented really by our first vice president, the remarkable Paula Madison. And Don was part of that conference as a special presenter talking about the food of the early Chinese immigrants. Not only did he talk about the food, but he also demonstrated and made dishes for us. And it was great sampling those dishes, by the way, and I can still remember them. He made several dishes that came out of his research in terms of what the early Chinese ate when they were working the mines and when they were working on the railroad. So he's a man that I've respected a lot. And I was so happy to be able to have him present to us tonight. Don's interest in cooking started really early. And I heard when he was about 8 years old, growing up in New York, walking with his sister and his relatives, looking at the street vendors and what they have to offer and going to the markets and the daily grocery runs, he got really interested in ingredients and food and cooking. He eventually picked up cooking techniques from many of the retired chefs who then went on to cook in family associations. So he was around those chefs and picked up many of their secret cooking techniques. But he actually did apprentice with executive chef Wu of the Hop Lee restaurant in Manhattan's Chinatown. And he did that while still in college. So while he was cooking professionally at restaurants throughout New York's Chinatown, he was actually going to New York University and completed his degree there. So that's really motivation for you. For the past 25 years, Don has volunteered at a nonprofit serving largely seniors, Chinese American seniors. And for them, not only did he cook for them, but he also organized cooking demonstrations and classes for them. Recently, Don has spent the last 5 years really delving deeply into food and researching the food and the ways of the early Chinese immigrants. Through Don, he gives voice to the chefs and the food culture that nourished the Chinese immigrant workers who came early and built this country. And he was able to share that history by helping us actually taste that history. He was invited to do a live cooking demonstration at the Utah State Railroad Museum during the 150th anniversary of the completion of the Transcontinental Railway. So, hello, my friend Don. How are you, Chef?
Hey, Gay, how are you? Thank you so much for having me here to join you guys. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And that's some of the things we're going to be talking about with you tonight. And you'll be sharing with our audience what we do when we celebrate Lunar New Year. Before we continue with you, Chef, though, I want to tell you a little secret, and that is that in anticipation for what we're going to hear and learn from you, I actually took staff out shopping last week, and we went to Wing Hop Fung, one of the largest dry goods stores selling all the things that you can imagine that we're going to need for ingredients for our Chinese dishes, especially for our Chinese New Year dishes. So I took staff shopping, and we actually filmed some little clips of various delicacies and things that we will be showing throughout this program. And so hopefully we can all share what we know visually and by watching and listening to you too. Is that okay?
Absolutely, that's exciting. Well, it is a virtual program, so will be great to see, you know, a little about the trip. We'll be covering, you know, one of the things I want to share is a very unique, one of the unique items that we're going to talk about is abalone, I believe. And it's something very special, especially related to Los Angeles. So stay tuned. We're going to talk about that one too. So show us the trip.
So since you're the star of our program, I'm going to hand off to you, and I'm going to turn off my video and listen attentively. So thank you so much. All yours.
Thank you, Kay. So hi, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out to join us today. I am going to, you know, do a little PowerPoint here to share, just to keep the program going a little bit. So Lunar Chinese New Year, the topic is symbols and tradition. So tradition for Chinese, when we come to putting down the four necessities of life is the clothing, food, living, and also transportation. So those are the four buckets that we're going to talk to. But of course, today we're going to focus a lot about food. We all know wearing red, wearing the new clothes. But one of the symbolism that I don't know if people are aware, when we go buy sun, you know, there's always fish, there's chicken, and then there's pork. And that's really something very special about that, right? It is actually our ancestors' way of saying, paying respect to something that swims, something that can fly, and something that walks. So that's always three things. But what's interesting also is that for Chinese New Year, the first day meal is actually vegan or vegetarian, right? So in my household, and again, let me just also prefix to saying that what I'm sharing with you have a lot to do with people from Canton, the Toisan, Hakka people from Canton. So there are people from the north, which could be different, and there are obviously different traditions in different part of different villages. But generically, this is about how most of the early immigrants will be celebrating Chinese New Year and their traditions. So here on the other corner, I'm making gokjai in one of the shops in Chinatown. So even the delicacies and even the pastries itself are sweet and also pretty much vegetarian. So what's interesting when I show this fish is that nowadays people are so healthy in China, they actually begin to bake cookies that look like fish, chicken, and pork rather than the actual proteins. So again, it's about the tradition. More important is the symbolism, and I think that's really exciting that people are beginning to recognize and appreciate what this is about, instead of just you know, having this. My father would say something to me that the reason why there's so much food in Chinese tradition is that our ancestors want to make sure that you guys all celebrate. But most importantly, when it comes to Chinese food, it is not the cooking itself. It's the delivery of it to make sure that the entire family can eat together. It's a communal meal. The most important part of the meal, besides the meal, is the experience. And that experience is the family experience. So how do you cook in a restaurant to make sure that all the meals are served at the same time? So that's really a very important piece. I'm gonna go one little bit about symbolism is what we're talking about. So many of you know what is Fai Chun, right? During Chinese New Year, all those red things that like behind me, right here, right? Just to well wishes. So in a Chinese restaurant I work in, Hop Lee, and in the earlier days, and the menu for Chinese New Year is very exciting because as everybody know, Chinese New Year celebrate from new moon to full moon, right? 15 days. So there's a Chinese menu. But when you look at the Chinese menu, it doesn't look like it looks like all of the Fai Chun. So what I'm showing you right now is a meal that I prepare for, because of COVID, what I did was I prepare a meal for my staff at the center, and I'll show you later on what it looks like. But just give you a sense of the meal, the menu, just read it out loud to you guys, right? Sunnin xiu ha ha. So you can imagine they basically use phonetic sound of the ingredient to describe the blessing, right? So you're gonna be laughter year round. Fa choi jiao shao, wealth at your hand. And again, when we go about the ingredient later on, we'll show you that part. Li nian bao yao yu. So they use one part of an ingredient into this Fai Chun, representing year in, year out, you will always have surplus. All right. Gum feng bo hei, meaning that the phoenix will bring good news to you. The other one is bo bo go sing, onward and upwards. Another one that I prepare for them is called Lo Xiu Ping On, right? The old and the young being safe and happy, right? Bao Lo Man Yao to have everything in life. Put Mun is an interesting concept because it is not the dish, but actually the dish itself that is served in that makes this one. And the one thing about Chinese food is, like I said, it's communal meal, meaning like typical banquet, right? They serve a lot of them at the same time because everyone eat at the same time. The two course that's really sets it apart is the first course, some would call it appetizers, and then the meal that completes it, right? So in this case, Tun Tun Yun Yun is the name of the dish. So I'll show you guys what it is later, but basically back in the days when I was cooking in Hop Lee and all the restaurants during Chinese New Year, you see this, and then it's a fun thing for people to guess what exactly is the meal, because most of the people who order it don't even know what it is until the dish shows up. So that's part of the fun part. So let me turn it back. I know that since we are doing a virtual show, let's see the trip. Okay, can you show us the part of the trip and show us what the experience looks like?
Look at. It is the supermarket of my dreams. Welcome to Wing Hop Fung. We're actually in the Monterey Park store. They also have a store in Westfield Santa Anita Mall in Arcadia. They are the biggest dry goods store in this area, and anything that you want in terms of dry seafood, dry vegetables and roots and seeds. They also specialize in all sorts of wine and liquor, as well as really teas that are so special that you wouldn't be able to find anywhere else. Wow. And so that's why this is my go-to store if I ever need anything in those areas and those categories. So shall we go shopping? Yes. Okay, let's grab a cart and we go shopping. Anybody need a rice cooker? So cute.
All right. I have been to the one on Westfield. Really impressive store. So let's talk a little bit about these dry good shop. We call them dry good, but it's has protein, right? Fish, a lot of sea, and then also kelp and other type of vegetables and herbal stuff. So traditional Chinese believe that it's all about balance, right? Having balance. That's the key thing. Harmony and balance. That is the secret to all Chinese food. in terms of the flavor. Um, so one of the key things that it's exciting about these dry seafood places is that the same stuff that they're selling there today has been when the our first ancestor landed in San Francisco or New York. These are the same food products that they have with them. It's really exciting, but beyond exciting, it's the way that allow for a variety of food. The most interesting characteristic of all of these food, of these dry ingredients, someone said to me, with every bite, you have a taste of the power of the sun because they're all dry by the sun. And then one other thing I want to share with you is not as simple as just drying it in just put it out there. There's a special technique about it. I paid extra attention in the last 5 years on this food because when I was going to do the cooking demo, someone said to me, they treated the workers really bad because all they give them is ham ha, the shrimp paste. Then the other one said, no, they got really good stuff. They actually have abalone. So you have the two extreme spectrum of ingredients. And it's amazing that nowadays we can go to this one store and you have the full spectrum of food that's been available and consumed by immigrants, Chinese immigrants throughout, not just in New York, but throughout the world. If you go visit, I'm one of those that every city I go to, I go to check out the Chinatown. So, and sure enough, they all have this. One thing unique about the food that you find in these places, there's a difference between food and medicine, right? So for food, over the thousands of years, these are the food that are deemed to be safe, will not trigger allergy. There are some, but generally speaking, one of the key thing about these ingredients is that it's raw, right? And it's very calming. And they're also mixing it different with different in cooking brings up different properties. And again, what I'm going to talk about mainly have to do with the Cantonese, the Southern Chinese folks. So that's a little bit different there. But again, that's just want to share the unique characteristic of all of these dry goods is one, it keeps well, all right, because it's pretty humid in Guangzhou and Toisan. But how do you maintain this? One other interesting factor about this is that before the Chinese went to California to do dry shrimp, 60% of the shrimp that are harvested from the ocean actually are spoiled, right? Because there's no way for them to, by the time they ship them from Monterey to San Francisco, right? They can probably sell about 20 to 30%. So there's a huge amount of food waste. Having them dry makes it sustainable and makes it, truly, I'll show you that a little bit in the cooking part. But again, it's one, from a health point of view, it's a balance, no toxic free, proven by 1,000 years of people eating it, and then sustainability, right? And do not waste food, right? So this is really one thing someone said, one of the books that I read, they said, Chinese tradition said, if you're going to take a life for sustenance, you need to respect everything about that life. So that's where we are. So I understand that you guys went to the trip and did a little bit of shopping. Can you show us the first thing that you guys encountered while you were there?
So I've asked them to take out this jar of dried abalone for me. I want you to see, these are dry, extra huge abalone from Japan. The price is $4,000 a pound.
Goodness, wow.
Okay, so if we take one of these, I think it's going to be like a couple of $100s for one. And so it's really considered a delicacy. And of course, we're eating at home, so we're not really buying and eating $4,000 a pound abalone, right? So, but I wanted you to see the difference in price ranges you can buy abalone for under $100 a pound, or this is more like gold, right, at $4,000 a pound. And so I just want to make sure that I introduce the abalone to you. Now I want to show you the abalones that we might eat for our own family dinners. But even then, it's still considered a delicacy, and also it's not cheap. So at home, my pantry will always have 1 or 2 cans of abalone in case I have unexpected guests or I have a craving for abalone. And it's just easier to open up a can and it, because I don't have to rehydrate this, then I can cook it immediately. And we cook it the same way. We braise it with black mushrooms, with different vegetables, and it becomes a very elegant meal.
All right, that's exciting. So abalone. Abalone is considered the best of the best in terms of food for its nourishment quality, right? It's Chinese is bao sam qi tou, the 4 hoi mei, right? The treasures from the sea, right? It's abalone, sea cucumber, right? Shark's fin, we don't eat that anymore. And then the bladder of preserved fish, right? So abalone is considered the pinnacle of food ingredients. And very interesting that I was doing this research, and I said, when they said to me, the railroad workers actually having abalone, I'm like, wow, where did they get it from? So it turns out, and this is the handbook from Monterey Handbook from 1875. And it says it might be estimated that the amount of dry fish exported from Monterey averages nearly 100 tons, all right? And then they possess about 13 boats, and all of which were built by them. So I just want to share a little bit from history. I read a lot where people say, well, you know, the rail workers, the gold miners, after they didn't listen to the job, they couldn't find anything else, they become fishermen. I just want to say, these guys came in, they are professional fishermen. You know, you don't learn to build your boats by, you know, there's no DIYs, there's no TV back then to learn how to build a boat, you know, so these are all from knowledge that's passed down. And also to be able to prepare to dry that abalone is not an easy task, right? So, but then here's an interesting thing that I found, that in the 1902 Los Angeles Herald, it says that abalone cannery started at St. Pedro. A new industry has been started, one in which entirely unique. But without a doubt, there's no other like it in the world. It's the canning of the abalone meat, right? So here we are, and it mentioned it goes from Monterey all the way to Lower California, and there you see all the different cans that, you know, Gay mentioned earlier, right? And thank goodness they did that in Los Angeles, because in 1915, California law decided that drying abalone is prohibited, right? They pretty much the way they kicked out all the Chinese people from harvesting that business. So, and it wasn't until 1970s. Now, what's also interesting, the can that I'm showing you now, it's, you know, when I was growing up there, I said the best bao yu is chelong bao from Mexico. And I'm like, where do they keep it in Mexico? How come when I talk to people in Mexico, they don't talk about it? Then it dawned on me that, wow, before California was, you know, part of the United States, it was Mexico. And I think history books will show that much earlier, there's been Chinese fishermen along the coast of California. So this chelong bao here, and also maybe because the fact that they did not allow the export of abalone from the United States, that they might just bring it down south and then ship it out and call it from Mexico, right? So it's part of interesting history. But again, if it wasn't for the Japanese Americans who started the cannery game, I don't know, you're gonna, are we still gonna be stuck with the dry abalone? Now, in terms of cooking the canned abalone, the easiest way to do it, there are two types. There are one that are that's pretty. Let me undo. Can you see me back here? So the one of them is the dry one. It takes 3 days to prepare. You gotta reconstitute it. You gotta, it takes literally in the restaurant. It takes me 3 days to prepare that abalone to be ready. With the canned one, now there are two types. There's the qing tong, right, the one with the clear broth, and then there's one hong siu. That's more like the one that you would if you have to cook it for 3 days. So the way you would prepare this at home, the simplest way is just boil the water, take off the paper from the can, drop the entire can into the water, right? All depends. Some say from 30 minutes to 2 hours, right? So I usually just, while I'm prepping other stuff, I'll just grab 2 cans, drop it into the boiling water and let it cook for about an hour, right? Then you bring it down, cool it off, and then it's all ready to go. So with the canned one, it's really easy to prepare, and it's really, don't even have to, just cook the sauce. If you really just want to get that, what would it taste like with that? So get the one with the hong siu with the braised sauce on it. And that one, you should, about 30 minutes is sufficient. It's really just warming it up. So that's abalone. So Gay, show us the rest of the trip. Looking forward, excited about it.
So of course, mushrooms, we know these as dry shiitake mushrooms. And again, depending on the size, they can run anywhere for, like this one is under $30 a pound. And normally the bigger they are, the more expensive they are. But also, the other way to pick good shiitake is to look at how thick.
How thick the cap is?
How thick the cap is.
Oh.
Because the flat ones won't soak up as much of the flavor, right? And so the size, the thickness, and how well formed they are. This mushroom is called Fagu flower mushrooms. And they're called that because of this patterns that almost look like flower petals.
Oh.
These are also the flower ones, but definitely they're smaller, right?
They're so pretty looking.
They are very pretty, and I think that's why they're called flower mushrooms, right?
Let's put it in our cart.
Let's take this one.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I've already introduced you to the shiitake, the dry mushrooms, the dry flower mushrooms, which is really a staple and something that's very desirable in Chinese and other Asian cooking. In the cooking of Chinese food, when we braise the mushrooms, we also have kind of like a holy trilogy that goes with the mushrooms. Cloud fungus, the black cloud fungus, the dried lily bulb flower, and then also the infamous hair fungus, black hair fungus. And so these 3 dried vegetables normally will go into braising of dried mushrooms in addition to whatever protein you put in. So whether you put in abalone or sea cucumber or the fish stomach, the fish bladder, the flavors will be enhanced, and the texture. Chinese eating is also very much texture related. And so these add the texture to that wonderfully braised dish that you're going to be making and you're going to be eating, right?
Yeah, so one of the most unique thing about the mushroom and the other dry ingredient is, again, the different flavor that will bring in. Chinese flavor is 酸甜苦辣鹹, right? sour, sweet, bitter, spicy, and salty, savory. So from the bulb, the flour, the also it give you that little sourness to it. So it actually can pick up the flavor. So when you cook them, not only is it like I said, all of these ingredients have been consumed for thousands, hundreds, if not thousands of years in China. So it's proven to be safe, right, by by consumption. But each one also carries different flavors. That's why when you combine them, it gives you that umami flavor. The Chinese mushroom being one of the most high concentration in terms of glutamate, right, giving you that flavor. Also in kelp and other areas. But to prepare them, it's interesting that I watch a lot of cooking shows like everybody else, right? And nowadays I see a lot of folks say, oh, you know, once you soak it, save the water for the cooking. So when I was in Hop Lee in the restaurant, we'll never save the water, right? We'll just like, hey, make sure you got good ingredients because the water will have the flavor, but there's a lot of dust. There's a lot, you know, being dry in the open field. You know, you're getting the power of the sun, but you're also getting other things that fly into it. So you do that back then when things were naturally dehydrated, right? But now they're all factory made or dehydrated. And you still need to soak it because you want to get rid of all the preservatives, right? So even though the technique is the same, but for different reasons. One is like, you know, dirt or other stuff that that you don't want to contaminate the food, but the other one is just preservative. So one of the most important things to do is don't cook it first, always soak it first, right? Before you cook it. Soak it, once it's soft, just get some ginger, get some water just to, you know, blanch it very quickly, and then continue to soak it overnight. That's the way it's done. Let me show you now, we've done enough, even though, oh, I'm trying to, okay, so let me share screen. I'm getting, okay, sorry guys. Cannot believe this time, Zoom still not. All right, so now I just want to share with you guys the actual meals, right? I talked about the menu. Let's jump right into the meal itself, right? So these are the 9 dishes that I prepare for my staff for Chinese New Year. So you can see here on the upper corner, the smaller window, that is the hosi, the dry oysters with the shiitake mushroom. The one, the lower part, abalone, right? If you look at these other dish, you're gonna see here. So the one in the middle is the big, that is the showcase, the showpiece, right, for my staff. The first dish that we ate was the ha ha dai siu, right? They used the shrimp, the phonetic Chinese phonetic ha as the symbol for this dish. So traditionally they would do shrimp with tomato sauce, ketchup halo. But, you know, to keep it easier here in New York, we just do a shrimp cocktail, right? So the other dish that chai is the other one, you know, the vegetarian dish that's made. But so you would have mushroom in this dish, you have mushroom in this dish, you have the other dry ingredients or in this area. And what the chicken, so is gam gai bo hei, meaning the chicken is bringing, not the chicken, the phoenix bringing good news to you. The other thing you notice is that some of the herbal stuff that you're gonna, well, we're gonna see that later. But this is the meal. What's also interesting is, you know, we talk about for Chinese cooking. So here you see mushrooms in every single one of these dishes, right? So mushroom is the most popular because it does give that flavor. But again, respecting that we're taking this duck for dinner, even the duck web is part of the main course of the meal. So nothing is wasted when it comes to Chinese cooking. So the bo bo go sing, meaning stepping up, is the duck web, and the giant snail or conch is the go sing, step forward and upwards, right? One other interesting part is that this is the Hakka, this is the tribute to Hakka. for them, the pun one is pun choice, the latest for the last, I would say 10 years or a little bit more, where people are serving a whole basin, just take a big food and serve it. It's just one communal meal. So the pun. So it's not so much, so it could be this, or it could be the pork that I prepare here, but the key is the pun. So that's the pun choy. So that's the one that, where we have that. Now, Gay also mentioned about the black hair, the black hair fungus, right? So that's right here, the fa choy. So Chinese New Year, always have that with you. So it doesn't matter which dish you cooked, even if you go to some dim sum, you notice they put it there. Put it in there, it means fa choy, right? Fa choy, fa choy. So, and then also serve it in lettuce. So if you see here, I have the whole lettuce on this side. So between fa choy and sang choy means, wealth and prosperity, right? So those are the, so again, fa choy is here, and it's also in the chai. So let's see your other area that you cover in the supermarket. Okay.
So a lot of the dinners, feasts, really has its base in many of the soups, especially Cantonese people, where our soups are our tonics. The tonics balance our body and it keeps us healthy. And this is familiar now to many, many people in the Western countries, and that's the goji berry. It's supposed to be such a healthy antioxidant, vitamins, minerals to put into your body. And then red dates are also very popular for us to put into tonics and soups. It's because it's a date, it adds a little bit of sweetness to the broth, but it's not overbearing sweet. The proteins that go into soups can also be found here. Whether we're making a chicken-based broth or a pork-based broth, we usually add a little bit of dry squid into the broth to give it that deeper flavor. It adds that fresh seafoody umami flavor to it. And so this we use a lot in soups. We had the dry oysters and the hair fungus, if you remember, yep, for New Year's because it was so auspicious sounding, right? It can be braised and eaten like we ate it the other day, or it can be put in soup. And again, to get that deeper seafoody type of broth that you want. In addition to the seafood taste, Chinese cooking is all about balance. If you use salt or soy sauce, my dad, who's a chef, always taught me to add a little bit of sugar or some sweet fruit into it, right? So if you're cooking soup, and let's say we're using the dry oysters and the squid, you would cut a little piece of ham to put in there. And this ham is called gamhua fo tui in Cantonese. But if I'm cooking it in a dish like abalone and mushrooms, then I would cut little slivers and then cook it and braise it. That would be enough. It's just to add a little bit of flavor in there so that it can be enhanced. Whatever dish you're cooking can be enhanced.
Yep, that's it. Just a little bit of it. It's exactly right. When it comes to Cantonese cooking, the most important piece is to let the ingredients sing. Right? I think in Chinese New Year is when you really get to enjoy all of these. I wouldn't say exotic for us, nothing exotic really knows about it. It's just pretty expensive stuff, right? These are all ingredients that are really good for you, right? And most of the seafood that Gay mentioned to you earlier, it's have to do with yum. Right? It's yin yang. Is it's yin. Uh, so from the human body, it's your internal intestines, your skin. So that's really where it really shines, right? Also, like abalone, you do make sure cook it right, but it has the other thing about all the ingredients. There's very little fat, right? There's very very little fat. I think abalone is maybe 2% fat, but very rich in protein and very easily to be absorbed. So the price that you pay for these ingredients have to do with how quickly you can absorb the nutrients. So at least that's what I'm told. I'm taught. So in terms of the different dry ingredients, the making the soup, I showed earlier one of the dish that we made for my staff um, is so the one that we make is fa choi jiao sao, right? That's actually the soup. You see the little bowls of soup over there on the side. So fa choi is again the black fungus, the black hair fungus, plus a whole host of the other ingredients, goji berry, the red dates. So when it comes to Chinese New Year, get the stuff that she mentioned, sprinkle them up. They are perfectly mix and match. You can't go wrong with them when it goes dates with the chicken right here, right? Dates there. So it's that little bit of sweetness, but more importantly, that little bit of bright red, that that celebratory color. That's really important. But again, even in the soup that we made, that's how it made. So just a little bit interesting story about soup, right? Most people, we all hear this growing up, right? Oh, you Chinese food. 15 minutes later, you're hungry again. And I get this a lot in when I was in Hopley, and the guy come in, ha ha, I'll be coming in 15 minutes. I said, well, that's because you don't know how to eat. Chinese people don't eat the soup up front. We eat the soup last. We make sure that our stomach enjoys our meal. And then only when I need to have more, if I'm not full, I have to fill up with soup. But you guys come here and kind of even mess it up for a lot of the Chinese folks now, because they're all having soup up front. So this whole thing about hungry is because most Chinese meal, the soups are served last, not first. Okay, so those are the other part. So besides the medicinal or health properties, it does give you that to balance things out. The other thing they want to talk about is like, well, how much do you eat? Don, if it's so good, why don't we eat, why don't I have more? Why don't I have 5 bowls? How many bowls do I need? So here's a rice bowl, all right? So in Chinese tradition for Chinese New Year, you don't ever have one, because you want to show your host that how much you're loving the food, that you want seconds. Now, that doesn't mean you're gonna, So the point is that typically in a very traditional meal, after your first bowl, you say, oh, team siu siu, just add a little bit more because it's so good, right? But here's the other thing about the soup. These soup bowls are engineered through thousands of years of history. So when I asked these guys, well, if it's so good, why don't I eat 5 bowls and stuff? I said, no, because if you turn 2 bowls together, it's about the size of your stomach, right? So what our ancestors telling us that anything more than this, it's basically gonna pass through your system. So it's built in to say how much, instead of a plate and how many ounces, how many bowls. So the Chinese bowls is something that's been engineered for thousands of years to say, this is how you make sure that you eat at the proper diet, right? In terms of quantity. So, okay, let me show me the rest of the trip that you guys out there. Very nice shop.
This actually is the Chinese wine section. And if you'll come with me, you'll see something familiar to you. Okay. Do you remember this?
Yes.
That I introduced you to? Right? So this is the drink, the official drink of China, Moutai. And Nixon, when he first visited China, that was what Mao Zedong used to toast him and Mrs. Nixon with during the official banquet. But like wine, Moutai can be $45, or it can be $450, because it depends on the year it was produced, where it was produced, and what type of collector's jar or bottle it's been put in. Growing up, and it wasn't in this beautiful package, but growing up, the ngape was really what was allowed to be imported into the US. And so I remember Chinese banquets only serving this ngape. But now they're available everywhere, and then also the large variety. So remember last time we were sampling the Chinese liquor, and I served the liquor in little cups like this. These are actually Chinese wine glasses.
They're so small.
They're very small, and they're small for two reasons. The first reason is when you're pouring 53% or, higher wine, you don't want a big mug of it, right? So that's the first reason. The second reason is culturally, when the Chinese drink and they toast their guests, or the guests toast their host, it's meant to be bottoms up.
Oh, okay.
Right? We say gonbui or yam sing, right? And it's if I toast you, then you're expected to drink the whole thing.
All right. Now the fun part, right? Now we're talking about happy drinking. So here's here's a little bit to share with you guys. Oh, just for the meal, like I mentioned that the last, this is the Lantern Festival. So in terms of the meal specifically, the last dish that we complete is Tong Yuen. And you're gonna see that it's sweet and yellow, the cane sugar. And then for those Toisan folks, we do savory, but the savory is in Godong, right? Just winter solstice. Whereas this Tong Yuen year round, but especially Chinese New Year, and especially on the 15th, the festival. Now, if we talk about Ngape, so remember I talk about the 5 flavors, right? That makes up the magic. So Xun Ting Fu La. So Jiao, the liquor, is considered the class of La, right? Because that La Jiao Li Jiao, you get that little bit burning sensation when you drink it. So a lot of the cooking, we do that part, but Ngape, here is the compendium of medicinal herbal stuff that was written in China. The original one, I believe, was a collection from a couple of thousands of years, but the first one was published was in the 15 something. But this particular image that you're looking at is one of those block print that dated 1603, and Ngape, it's listed in this book as the top, and Ngape is this herb right here, the bark of this particular tree. It is considered the top prize in terms of herbal stuff, right? And Ngape is the key ingredient is Ngape. So when they say Ngape, it's actually that the bark of this particular tree, Ngape. Then they mix 5, 6 different other ingredients to get the, and then double distill. And this is a very older picture of traditionally what it looks like, right? You're gonna see that the red color. So for Chinese, especially weddings and all the, it's always red. So this is one of the things. One thing about Ngape is one of the wine that they say, well, it's a dessert wine, all right, to help you digest, but it's also wine to, open up your appetite. So this is a wine that you drink throughout the entire meal. The one go-to this would be the one, right? And then if you are, for a lot of the railroad workers in particular, and all the laborers in our ancestors, this is actually medicine for them, right? So that makes sure arthritis and all of these things. So Mgape has a very special place in especially for all the workers that work out. Now, I get this one other picture that I show you that during Prohibition, they actually, if you look at that little bottle there, they actually said, they follow, the US government. So these guys make sure that they would import Mgape. So they actually make that part of the bottle, right? That they in compliance with federal law that you cannot resell this bottle. So that's how special this is for Chinese Americans in terms of Mgape. So what is the, Gay, what's the, show more about your trip?
Hi, John. Those are all the videos we have. We can
That's
go ahead and
all
move
the
on to
videos you have.
Q&A.
Okay, well, I saw one where they were walking out, so I'm like, wow. Anyway, it's a beautiful place. It's before I just want to reference that a lot of the research came from these two books, especially on the Abalone, right, by Todd Raja, and then also Sandy Linden. And I really, at another time, if at the opportunity come, I'll share with you guys or interested about the boat people. Through this research, I found out that my mom's family is actually Yan. And also where a lot of people think my father's side, Toisan, are the one that came to this country, actually Yan and Hyeongsan, right, which is Zhongshan folks. These are the first, pioneer that was down in the Southern California coast. So that's a different story, but I do want to reference the where I get a lot of information, or at least get me thinking and looking. So I want to really thank the that. And lastly, just thank you all. It's been time spent all of you guys. That's me when my younger days when I was cooking in Hop Lee, doing the line dance, and the one with the purple shirt that was yesterday in Chinatown. So, or Sunday, not yesterday. Anyway, so thank you guys. And Gay, let me turn it back to you.
Wow, Don, thank you so much. Let's wait for the spotlight. Thank you so much, Don. And I know if we were in person, we'd be really clapping right now. So thank you, thank you, thank you. There has been some questions that were put into the chat box. So we don't have very much time, but there were a couple that I think you would really enjoy answering, frankly. One very thoughtful question was, are there any foods that are served depending on the family member's age?
Well, the one dish, lo siu ping on, right? That means the young and the old. So steamed eggs, it's steamed egg with fish. It's one such dish. Chai, right? The thing is that you just cook them a little bit longer. So most Chinese meals, it's just you need to like bao yu. Even that, it's that's why someone say 30 minutes to 2 hours. So basically, you just have to cook it down. So they're really and then depending on how they're feeling, that's part of it, that, oh, my knees are getting bad. So you're going to eat something that's more gelatinous to just, so. And one thing that growing up, remember the one thing that people eat, they don't eat that much anymore is baka, right? Pigeons. So, we're here in New York, we're always just like, where are the pigeons coming from, right? So the Chinese, they believe that this has got the greatest survival capability. So baka to make soup, this is something that they serve to the older seniors to help them to revitalize them. And Mgape always works.
Of course, we can't forget the liquor, right? Another of our viewers was asking, because they saw that big spread you did for your staff, But frankly, that's pretty much a normal spread for us, you know, when we do New Year's. So they're asking, what do you do with the leftovers? Is it faux pas to serve leftovers? What do you do with them?
No, it's not faux pas overs. Chinese people never waste food. Well, and then never. So because these foods just are so well adapted for each other. So for example, if I have leftover chai, I have donggu with the other ones, just that it's no longer vegetarian. It'll just get mixed into it. It'll work. You know, the juice out with the soup. And you do want everyone to take some home. So that's part of it. If everything gets, you know, a good host in Cantonese will never have an empty dish, right? That means you're not doing enough for your food. So, but no, there's no faux pas. Enjoy it, mix it, and when in doubt, sang choy, lettuce, just stir fry a little bit, mix it up, all good. The other one, fancy, right? The vermicelli, again, soak that up. It will soak up all the sauce, all the juice, and, you know, get that taste with it. So,
and frankly, some of the dishes taste better the next day.
No question about it. So a lot of folks don't realize, especially when you do pork knuckles and stuff like that, and a bao yu, it's not cooking for 3 consecutive days. There's middle process is what they call go. You basically cook it and you just let it just stay right there and, you know, get the temperature cooked down. So it's much better the next day. Or most of the Chinese New Year dishes absolutely are.
Yeah, and I think one of the final questions relates to what you were saying about the sequence of serving the soup, because I do remember way back when my grandparents were still alive, we always had soup after dinner, and now you're validating it. And so, what other changes have you seen in terms of Chinese food culture that you're hoping would remain the same and not change?
So the most important one I would say is, again, not what is the experience when it comes to Chinese food, right? When I was in Hop Lee, what I had to learn was to not to cook individual dishes, but to how quickly can I serve all the dishes at the same time. So that means that you need to not just to, you know, fry this, fry that, stir fry. So it's the combination, right? So in the typical Chinese restaurant, you have the stir fry station, of course, and you have the deep fry station, and you have the soup station, and the steam station, right? So it's, look at the menu. I hope that people would appreciate that meals are supposed to be consumed in balance. The other part is that I think that people are rushing these days, right? When I see mushrooms, you got YouTube channel telling people, well, put in some hot water, put in the microwave. No, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to do that. You are not respecting the ingredient. I would get smacked by my chef if I do that. So let it soak, let it reconstitute, respect the food that takes so much to harvest. We respect the protein that we eat. So that part I noticed that a lot of folks these days they do it for the Instagram more than the taste. Like, give me one example, like suddenly, jin doi, right? The round pastry.
The sesame balls, yeah.
The sesame ball. The way I had it, it's hollow. As you fry it, it gets bigger and bigger, and the hong dao's on the inside. Nowadays, it's like fried mochi. The whole thing is just one big dough. So I hope that people would take a little time to appreciate the significance of it, you know, because it's beyond just culinary. There's really it tells about bringing people together, like the Tong Yuen, right? Just the name of it. It's like goal. It's not just the stepping up the goal. It's not just always moving forward, but it's sticking together. Yeah. Right. So don't turn away from Tong Yuen. The sticking together is our sense of reminding all of us, stick together. That's family. So.
Well, I'm going to stick with you, Don. The next time I go to New York, and you make sure you visit us the next time you come to LA.
I look forward to it. Yay. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share with everyone.
And I want to thank you, big thank you for Chef Don. And for our audience, I want to have you join us in our CAM tradition for these programs. We always take a whole group picture together. Whether there's 50 of you or 200 of you, we always like to capture our sessions. So please turn on your cameras, and then our staff helpers will give us directions in terms of how they're going to be taking our pictures. So please, if you want to be in our picture, turn on your cameras or your video.
Hey everyone, my name is Jean, and I'm just gonna go ahead and take a couple of quick screenshot photos of
I
everyone.
see Cindy.
Yeah, so then if everyone could just make sure the camera's on if you want to be in this photo, and just put on some big old smiles. I'm just gonna have to take a couple of photos just so we make sure we get everyone on camera. So I'll just give you a couple more seconds to turn on your photos. If you don't want it on, that's fine as well. All right, okay. I'm going to start counting down. 3, 2, 1. Everyone smile. Okay, perfect. All right, and I think we're all good.
Thank you, Jean.
Back to
Don,
you.
any closing words of wisdom for us?
No, I really just want to thank everyone. And, it's been very challenging time for all of us, especially Asian Americans. I think Chinese New Year this year makes it that much more special to me and to all of us. And I think I appreciate the opportunity, and we need to do more fun programs to share in our culture.
Yes,
so I
definitely.
look forward to that. So I'll be actually going to Marysville for Yi. So if you guys want to swing up there, I think it's on the 6th in March. So anyway, there you can also get a taste of history. So thank you all. Really appreciate the opportunity. Happy New Year, good health.
Thank you so much. And I just want to remind the audience that CAM will be wrapping up our Chinese New Year presentations with a live screening on March 5th. And that's going to be our Lantern Festival screening. And you'll get the information from the chat box and also what's on the screen in front of you right now. Thank you everyone for joining us, and please have a safe and happy Year of the Tiger. Thank you so much. Goodbye.